5:45, call the meeting to order. Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Chisel.
Here.
Neal.
Here.
Carlson.
Here.
Luz. Here. Bergen.
Here.
Hadley.
Here.
Johnson.
Public comment. Is there anyone who wishes to make any public comment that's not on the agenda? Seeing none. Consent agenda.
Consent agenda consists of the minutes of the June 1 and June 4 council meetings, claims, fiscal 21 cigarette permits, renewal Class E liquor license for Casey's General Store, College Drive, including Class B wine, Class C beer, and Sunday sales privileges, expanded outdoor service area for the landing, Resolution 3093, setting a date for a public hearing on a request for rezoning of property, Tom and Barbara Mossman, 1513 Laurel Drive, parcel from A1 Agricultural District to R1 Single Family Residential District for July 20, 2020. Resolution 3094, updating the city's depository resolution. Resolution 3095, setting a date for a public hearing on granting a right-of-way easement with My Energy for the airport, July 6, 2020. And Resolution 3097, setting a date for a public hearing on a water tower lease for 911 board communications equipment, July 6, 2020.
Mayor, if I might,
Yes, Steve. Is it Steve?
I'd like to pull the June 4th minutes for separate consideration.
Item A.
That's a motion?
It's just, he doesn't need the motion, he can just request it.
Okay. And then that would be right after the consent agenda then? Right. Okay. June 4th will be pulled from the consent agenda. Request by Luce.
I'd make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the June 4th pulled out.
Okay.
Hadley.
Second. Carlson.
Any other further discussion?
Chad, are there any public comments on Resolution 3093?
There have been no public comments on Resolution 3093 today.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Roll call?
Hadley.
Aye.
Carlson.
Aye.
Luz. Johnson. Neal.
Aye.
Chisel.
Aye.
Bergen.
Aye.
Motion pass. Consider the minutes for June 4th. Consider approval for the minutes for June 4th. How?
I'd like to speak to the comment on the 6th line down on the minutes that says, Councilperson Chisel stated the majority of people supported Alliance, believes there was erroneous information provided on both sides. I don't think he said he believed that, but he stated that. So I think he needs to say that stated.
No.
The actual quote is, it doesn't matter because there was erroneous information on both sides, which made it very confusing.
Let's see.
I really have no idea what the erroneous information on both sides was, but it was a statement that he made at that point that wasn't just a belief.
And that was as written by Wanda, correct? Okay.
How do you want that stated, Steve?
You might have to use the,
I think it's just a continuation of Councilperson Chisholm stated the majority of people supported Alliant, and that there was erroneous information provided on both sides.
Well, I would offer the comment that the minutes could be amended, but if they're gonna be amended, typically, Wanda writes the minutes to paraphrase conversation and not provide a transcript. But if there's a question or concern about the actual paraphrase language, the default should be that the actual language is inserted.
And that's fine with me, but I don't think the believes is what should be inserted. I think it was a statement.
so what you're saying that they would be the adjustment, would that be in parentheses then? And with, or how do you insert that into the minutes then?
Well, they're just reflected here
Yeah,
as a comment or a change,
okay.
but
I have a
I'll
question.
change it to say what the words actually were. Like Chad said, you just, paraphrase things in
Yep.
minutes. But I'll put what was verbatim said in that line.
Do you mind, would you add in reference to the 2018 vote? Just so there isn't any, that's what we were talking about, and so I don't, if someone was to reference these minutes, I want to, Randy's comments were in reference to a vote that was taken in 2018, not the current situation that we're doing right now.
So we still need them.
The room is coming across very poorly on Zoom.
Oh, can you hear me now if I say that? Is that better?
Yes?
Okay. What I said was that I asked if we could just insert in the minutes that Councilperson Chisholm was referring to that municipal vote in 2018, not the current state of where we were with Alliant.
So I'm looking
But
for,
the complaint is started because of actions by one side in 2018. I'm just pointing out that both sides confused the issue with a feasibility study with erroneous numbers. Both sides. I didn't agree with either numbers, but thoroughly confused the vote that was had in 2018.
so I'm looking for a motion for the minutes. That would include the statement with which you want it listed, if I'll put it that way.
I would be good with it reflecting what was actually said.
That's what we are doing, I think. Is that right? I'll make a motion that we amend the minutes with what is reflective of what was actually said and includes reference to the 2018 municipal election that the comment was related to.
So I have a motion,
Second?
second by Luz. Any further discussion? Roll call?
okay, Neal,
Aye.
Luz,
Aye.
Johnson. Aye. Carlson,
Aye.
Hadley,
Aye.
Bergen,
Aye.
Chisholm.
No. Because that last comment could be misleading.
Okay.
If it's the actual wording, that's fine. If you're going to insert things that I did not say, that's wrong. So,
Okay. Please note that. Public hearing on request to rezone Downing Commercial Subdivision 172, 172nd Avenue parcel from A1 Agricultural District to C1 Highway Commercial District and Scenic View Estates Subdivision from A1 Agricultural District to R3 Multiple Family Residential. Ed, can you give background on that?
Background review, this is obviously a required public hearing, amending the zoning code for the city of Decorah. Planning and Zoning Commission recommends approval of this after their hearing and action. The rezoning request is a result of final annexation and some cleanup necessary due to overlapping additions, subdivisions in the original scenic view estates, subdivision plat, both for the residential areas noted kind of to the west, southwest. There are 2 areas proposed for rezoning as a result of the annexation, a C1 commercial and an R3 residential, and those are noted more in that 172nd Avenue area, and the 2 cleanup areas that I mentioned in R3 more to the west southwest. The 2 annexed areas would be zoned from A1 Ag to the city zoning of R3 multiple family, and an A1 Ag to C1 highway commercial. And the 2 cleanup areas are just restating the R3 that they were intended when they were annexed. And there have been no comments at City Hall that I'm aware of.
I'll open the public hearing. Is there anybody who wishes to speak to this item? Hearing or seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Consider ordinance 1250 approving the rezoning request for rezone Downing Commercial Subdivision, 172nd Avenue parcels from A1 Agricultural District to C1 Highway Commercial District and Scenic View Estate Subdivision from A1 Agricultural District to R3 Multifamily Residential. First reading.
I'd move for approval of ordinance 1250.
Second.
Motion made by Chisel, second by Carlson. Any discussion? Roll call?
Chisel,
Aye.
Carlson,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Bergen,
Aye.
Hadley,
Aye.
Johnson.
Public hearing on proposal to grant, excuse me, a perpetual parking easement to Decorah Woolen Mill LP in the city of Decorah.
This hearing is required action due to the long-term nature of the public easement agreement. This easement agreement between Northeast Iowa Community Action for their Woolen Mill properties just off Court Street and Hively for parking. The amended easement adds 2 parking spaces to the recognized areas used for ADA parking and a dumpster that has since been located along that north edge of their building. No changes in parking to the center aisles. The easement agreement also adds provisions for the city being named an additional insured organization and provides for termination of the easement for essential corporate purposes. None of those were contemplated in the original easement agreement circa about 2003. So no significant adverse changes for the city and no comments at City Hall, I believe. So here we are, if there are any now.
Does the easement run with the property, or is the easement granted to the corporation?
This is granted to runs with the land, not the individual.
I'd make a motion to approve Resolution 3096 as presented.
Second.
Aren't we still in the public hearing?
Yep, I think I
Yeah,
closed
you're
it.
still in public
Okay.
hearing, so
Oh.
that was one part.
I close the public hearing.
And that was motion by Hadley and
Yeah.
second by Carlson?
Yeah.
Yep. Any further discussion? Roll call?
Hadley,
Aye.
Carlson?
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Chisel,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Luce.
Aye.
Okay. Public hearing on proposal to amend Chapter 15.04, design criteria in the city of Decorah.
Okay, this is a little bit more lengthy. I've written in the background notes kind of the history of how we've gotten here today with Chapter 15.04 design criteria. But basically, this is a code provision that was established in about 2005 to just try to regulate and monitor what types of rehab and improvements have taken place or would take place in the downtown district. Since that time, the Historic Preservation Commission has put the downtown district on the National Register of Historic Places and has been a lot more interested and concerned about changes, improvements, and redevelopment in the downtown district because of that. So as a result of those conversations, the Planning and Zoning Commission, the Board of Adjustment, and the Historic Preservation Commission put together an ad hoc team that reviewed this code section after 15 years and tried to recommend changes in process, application, review, and some of the criteria that are reviewed in the district itself, and try to bring that code section up to date and more in line with historic preservation and the National Register of Historic Places designation. So I've listed in the background notes some of the significant changes, enhancing and adding to some of the definitions for the district, streamlining and defining the review and application process, removing the permit process for maintenance and minor alterations, allowing for administrative review, creating a review checklist that would assist staff and boards and commissions as we receive an application, just making sure that we point out and acknowledge the critical functions as the code allows, and engaging the Historic Preservation Commission in the application and review process, which is a voluntary process, and we're still working through administratively what that looks like. Right now, with the Historic Preservation Commission and the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting on the same night, it creates problems with review and recommendations from one body to the other. And so we're talking through whether one of those commissions might move to a different night in the month so that intake could be done by staff, reviewed, presented to one commission, and then there would be ample time to present to the other commission before things finally end up in front of the city council for approval. So we're still working through some of those things, but those are some of the things contemplated in the updated ordinance as well. You see on the background notes, pretty extensive conversation throughout the community in terms of other boards and commissions and input groups that we've talked to, including the Smith Board, the Downtown Betterment, the Retail Committee, met with a group of realtors, and you can see all that in addition to 2 or 3 meetings by the Planning and Zoning Commission to review this. That all culminates in the Planning and Zoning Commission holding a hearing and ultimately recommending the amendments that you see in front of you tonight. So that's your public hearing overview. If there are any comments or questions, we have to answer.
I'll open the public hearing. Is there anybody who wishes to speak? Seeing and hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. Consider ordinance 1251, approving the proposal to amend Chapter 15.04, design criteria in the city of Decorah, first reading.
Chad, have any of,
The first reading of the
Yes,
ordinance,
it's the first reading.
1251.
Yes, first reading at 12:51.
he's making a motion.
He's making a
Oh,
motion.
okay, sounds good. Motion made,
Okay, Steve, and you moved it. Johanna has a question before somebody seconds it, unless somebody jumps in.
Chad, my question is if either Historic Commission or Planning and Zoning talked at all about notification to downtown business owners about
the additional review process, and if we could talk about how to be proactive in education?
There have been some conversations about trying to educate. As a matter of fact, at the retail committee, that came up as well. Yes, it is a problem from time to time. We see people doing things that, you know, all of a sudden now through enforcement, I send a letter or I make a phone call and they weren't even aware
Right.
that the condition existed. I have talked to a couple local realtors and John Anderson too, our city attorney, in terms of could this be something that a note would be placed on an abstract or a title?
Oh.
And there may be some ways to look at that also as a note. So if somebody buys a property, I mean, people miss things, right?
Yeah.
There's an awful lot of things going on in the world, but that may help as well.
Yeah. I think some of the things that I like about the updates to the ordinance would be most beneficial when a property owner was considering design early in their process, and are far less helpful when some change has already been made and then they were made aware of the standards, and then we're reviewing comments by commission members that are sort of opinions, right, to say this doesn't feel very good. That type of review isn't beneficial to us at council. And so some sort of, you know, mailing to the current property owners and some way to flag, I like the abstract idea, I think would allow us to actually implement responsive design on Main Street. That's my primary comment. And the second comment I would share is that just like you were proposing the matrix for staff to use to track the progress through this, I would definitely be supportive of some sort of similar document for the Historic Preservation Committee to work on, so that their comments to us are reflective of, in item D, this is sort of a 3 out of 5, versus I don't like this color combination, right? Again, I want to be fair to property owners and helpful to us in the approval process.
Yes, thank you.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I just have a quick comment too before anybody seconds, but I'm very thankful of the amount of work and review and everything that's been done on this. My concern is that it's education and outreach, but it's also enforcement. And I know we have a new planning and zoning person coming on. I would like to have the responsibility for enforcement and education and outreach somehow, whether it's written in or whether it's in the job description. Make sure that they tie together.
You mean the zoning administrator? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, because without it, it's the creation of an ordinance without education or enforcement, and it's not beneficial. But to Johanna's point, if we can have the process done earlier with site review or on the transfer of property, triggering the mailing of something, if we can work in conjunction with the title company, with abstracts or whatnot, so that we have a defined trigger of when dissemination of information occurs. Because it's confusing enough if you own a building and you want to put in new windows or whatnot. But certainly when you're buying a new building and bringing in a new business, you have a lot of irons in the fire. And I just want to make sure that we are not penalizing anybody down the road after work has been done.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I have one more question. I missed this in my review. There's a reference in the language to appendices. Are those created?
Can you tell me exactly where that is? I think I have the answer, but I want to make sure I'm talking about the right space.
Well, I was looking for them and now I lost it.
Okay.
It's the yellow and red highlight at the top. For ideas, consult the sign and building guidelines available in the accompanying appendices.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. So the Historic Preservation Commission is working on a document for each design guidelines and signage that is almost like a pictogram. So it would define the code, and then it would show an example of what we mean by that visually, and an example of what we think is not that visually. So there would be icons or pictures for each of those points in a separate appendice that, you know, people are visual. So having something that's, well, what do you mean by a cornice? Or, you know, what does that look like? Well, here's an example of what we think that is. Right? And it doesn't mean that that's exactly what we want. It's just an idea that this is that term or definition.
Will we see those when they're completed by
Yeah,
the commission?
and you know, those won't really be codified.
Okay.
Those would be part of what I would call the administrative rules.
Okay.
And so, yes, when those are done, and right now because of the pandemic, the Historic Preservation Commission's kind of backed off on some of their work just because they can't meet as efficiently in that. They have the sign one, I think, mostly done, and they're still working through the design one.
Okay, so we have a motion. I'm looking for a second.
Did Ross second or no before?
I appreciate the work. I'm not sure it's cooked.
Okay,
That's first reading, I'll second it.
Can we change it between a first reading and a second reading?
Not substantially, to make minor edits.
Is your main concern the education dissemination about it?
There are a lot of parties. I just want to know who's responsible. Who do you feel would be the responsible party for education and outreach before we vote?
Well, it's a city code, so it's the city's responsibility. I will say that, you know, given my opportunity to visit with SMID, Betterment, the Chamber, the Retail Committee, the realtors, you know, that was a great conversation with those folks just in terms of education and trying to put something in their packets as they market downtown buildings and areas within this district. I think all of those organizations have a stake in how we implement this code, but at the end of the day, it's a city code. It's up to the city to enforce. These other organizations would be support groups for us, right?
Chad, would you be willing to send just a quick email to the leadership of those 4 groups and ask if they have any comment for us before we pass the second reading?
Sure.
If I feel confident that we've asked for public input again, specifically from those guidance since November 2019, I'd be happy to move forward tonight.
okay. Any further?
Mine doesn't pick up real well.
Sorry, Steve, do you want me to repeat that? Well, now I'm in trouble. Steve, would you like me to repeat that?
Yes, I would like to hear what you said.
Okay. I asked if Chad could send an email to SMID and Betterment and the realtors that he met with last fall to alert them that we would have a second reading on this next meeting and just request if they have any comment. And with that action, I would be comfortable moving forward tonight.
Okay. Roll call?
Luce,
Aye?
Chisholm,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Carlson,
Aye.
Bergen,
Aye.
Hadley,
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Consider site plan approval, reference 105 St. Lawrence Street, Quandall Investment Properties LLC, multifamily residential unit.
Mayor, I would ask that the council consider tabling this item at this time. While the Planning and Zoning Commission has approved the site plan for this multifamily development, there are some questions and some concerns from surrounding neighbors that we would like to address. And so I have scheduled a meeting for later this week with the developers and the neighbors in the area to address those concerns and sit down and kind of go through their checklist. And so I would ask that the council table this until further notice.
Okay.
I move to table
Motion made by Johnson, seconded by Luce. Discussion? For roll
It's a
call.
great chance that you're having a meeting, people getting, people together to talk it through.
Agreed, thank you
Thanks, Steve.
very much.
Okay, any other further discussion? Roll call?
Johnson?
Aye.
Luce?
Aye.
Carlson?
Aye.
Neal?
Aye.
Hadley?
Aye.
Bergen?
Aye.
Chisholm?
Aye.
Consider Resolution 3087, approving bond purchase agreement for the sale of general obligation corporate purpose bonds, Series 2020A. They're under.
I'd move for approval of Resolution 3087 on the 10-year bond.
Second.
Any discussion?
I wondered if Michael had something to share.
Hi, folks. Michael Maloney from DA Davidson. I'll be short and sweet. Overall, as you're likely aware, while interest rates have zigzagged over the spring and June, I'll just highlight a couple key pieces. One, on the Series 2028 bonds that are targeting the Locust Street improvements, the interest rate, the TIC, kind of like your APR on your home loan, is at 1.495%. So, it's tough to be lucky, but when you can be lucky and good, that's a good day. So a good rate for the city on that one. Secondly, we'd always talked about doing some refinancing for Series 2020B, and if it made sense, obviously the rates trended favorably, and it looks like that was the case here today. So, Davidson, pleased to serve the city in bringing these to you. Happy to answer any questions, but did also want to take this moment to just thank staff for all their hard work. I know you guys see the paperwork coming through the council chambers at these meetings, but there's just a ton behind the scenes that Chad and Wanda had to do, and they're not just dealing with me, but your bond attorneys as well. So thanks for the opportunity to get to share that with you here today.
Thank you, Michael.
You want to add anything, Wanda?
The only thing that is, the savings on the rebonding. The 2014 bond is going to be $94,797,000 savings, and the 2018 bond is $63,991
It's awesome, great.
savings.
Amazing.
Refinancing.
And how much did we save with the 10-year as opposed to, weren't we looking at the 12-year?
160,000.
Okay. Be nice if the media would print that as well.
So I'm looking for a motion.
You've got one.
You got one.
got
one.
Perfect,
And a
Steve.
second.
Yeah.
Okay. Roll call?
Chisholm?
Aye.
Carlson?
Aye.
Luce?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Hadley?
Aye.
Neal?
Aye.
Bergen?
Aye.
Motion carries. Consider Resolution 3098, proposing to dispose of city-owned real property in the vicinity of the Northwest.
She's-
I
Whoops,
think we
wrong
skipped
one,
12.
sorry,
Yep,
I
item 12.
apologize.
You're on number 12.
Yep.
Resolution 3088.
Consider Resolution 3088, approving bond purchase agreement for the sale of taxable general obligation refunding bonds, Series 2020B.
I'd move.
Move resolution 38.
Steve, we didn't catch all that. Could you repeat that, Steve?
I would move resolution 3088.
I'll second.
Discussion? Hearing none, roll call?
Luce?
Aye.
Chisholm,
Aye.
Reagan,
Aye.
Hadley,
Aye.
Johnson. Carlson.
Aye.
Consider resolution 30, whoops.
I was gonna say, I think all our resolutions should be this profitable.
Consider resolution 3098, proposing to dispose of city-owned real property in the vicinity of the northwest corner of US Highway 52 and State Highway 9, establishing requirements for the sale and development of said city-owned land, setting a date to receive proposals, and setting a date for a public hearing for the sale of said city-owned land. Chad?
So the city council and several committees have met to discuss this possible sale, actually probably for the last year to 18 months or so. And staff has prepared a format for the city to consider the sale of this public land. But it does come with a process and a format and additional review. Partly because the land is in, is that this one?
No, I think it's Planers. Check your connection. Check where it's plugged into the base. It could be that one too, Chad, but I think it's starting up here.
Don't move. Because the land is in an urban renewal district, it's in the 2008 Southwest Decorah urban renewal area. That does require certain steps and procedures to go through as well. But also your city zoning code, especially under the Planning and Zoning Commission, has certain criteria, namely that they need to review the sale of any land against any provisions in the comprehensive plan. So your Planning and Zoning Commission has reviewed this. They do recommend the sale of the land as long as future use follows the comprehensive plan, namely the future land use map, which shows the area as highway commercial development. At the last meeting where the council was together and talked through this, John and I had shared some elements that we would put forth if you're going to sell it. These would be requirements or criteria. Those are enumerated in your background notes. And it was with that understanding that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended the sale of the land as well. If you do wish to proceed, then I've also listed some dates in that process, with tonight being approving the resolution establishing the requirements and your intent to sale. June 25th would be publishing notice, inviting proposals. June 28th, the deadline, or excuse me, July 28th, the deadline for receiving proposals, and then August 3rd, your public hearing to review and take possible action.
When we had met as a committee, Chad, we also talked about having some provisions on the sale of that land, that buildings that were built on it were following recommendations by the Sustainability Commission, and sort of especially the stormwater retention information. So what we were talking about was essentially we were looking at a new stormwater ordinance and some building codes, and all of those things should be coming in short time, but I'd hate to see us make a deal and then not have those things apply to this newly developed area.
And I thought I put those in here.
I didn't see it when I read through it, but I could have missed it too.
Maybe I,
We've got a version 1. Do you think
Yeah.
there's a version 2?
maybe there might be a version 2, but I did address that. I'm sorry.
Okay.
And I can send that right out to you tonight, but I'm sure I made those changes in there. There was actually some language to that effect in the comprehensive plan as well, but then I took your notes regarding the sustainability plan.
Okay.
So they're in there.
Okay.
If they're not, then I would ask you to approve this resolution contingent on them being in there, but I'm pretty sure I wrote those.
Okay. Did anybody else see him? I didn't.
Did you do the title and abstract work for this? Or did you have, someone did it?
For this property,
Yeah,
we haven't done any title or abstract.
okay. Do you know how long the city's owned this property? Does anyone have any idea? And have we expressed any said purpose for what we'll do with the proceeds from this land?
There hasn't been council direction on that, but I understand council intent is to put that money aside for future facility, whether that be a fire station or some type of municipal center.
So-
I don't, maybe John can speak. That doesn't need to be in here. It could be if you wanted it to be, but really that would be action that would be maybe more appropriate when you actually have a check in hand, and you would give direction as to what to do with that after the sale. But we would take direction from you as to how you wanted to address that.
So with no said purpose for, there's no then said reason for why we're selling the land. Is that correct? Other than we might spend it on a building?
So my understanding on this, Andy, and I've been someone who's been hesitant to sell, so where I am after all of this discussion is that there may in fact be a better taxable commercial use for this land. And this is one of few properties that we have the opportunity to sell in exchange for an amount of cash that could be worthy of investment in facility. And so those are the two reasons that
I just feel like we're getting the cart in front of the horse here, and maybe we need to figure out what we need to do with the proceeds before we decide to sell. I don't think the property's going to lose value over the next few years.
Folks, it's fading out again.
Sorry, Steve.
Just be deliberate with your microphone when you're talking.
I will talk.
This is just setting the requirements for anybody wishing to buy the land, correct? No? Well, I mean, it is, but it's not on. Do you want me to turn my... I will lose all my notes. Okay, better?
Good.
Now I have no notes.
So to answer Councilperson Neal's question, so the resolution language, this resolution establishes the requirements for the sale and development of the land, sets a date to receive proposals, and sets a date to hold a hearing, required hearing on the sale. So it'd be those.
So someone could essentially come in and make us an offer at that point.
Right. And it could be that if it's concern for the council as to what you might spend the proceeds on between now and August 3rd, when you have your public hearing, you could determine what that restriction or requirement on the funds is. Right? You could have that established going into the August 3rd public hearing and action.
And we can always say no if we don't like the offer.
Good, certainly.
Andy, how much specificity in use of that money are you looking for?
Well, I would like to know what exactly. If it's for public safety, I mean, we've done a pretty good job as far as fundraising is concerned for public safety, correct? Like, I would assume that would be something we could raise money for as opposed to a street department building, right? I mean, I just would like to see something tangible that we're attaching it to, that people can say, okay, that money is set aside for a new fire department or a new police department, whatever you're looking to build.
And I'm hearing you say more specifically attached than to city facility infrastructure.
Right.
Well, we got 6 weeks.
6 weeks to put that together. I don't
Are
think
you
that's going to
also-
happen.
Just trying to pick your brain. Is it also to, you're worried that the value of the land is going to continue to increase, so why are we
Absolutely.
rushing to?
Why would you sell it now?
Well, so my question, and I don't, anyone, right? So is the taxable value of that land that we would be getting, say in the next 5 years, greater than the value that's going to be added to that land in the next 5 years? That's what I'm wondering. And I think that's probably what you're looking at too,
Sure.
right?
And it's the largest piece of property that we own in city limits. It's not like we're selling some small lot that doesn't have that much significance. I mean, I could think we could use it for ourselves as well, but obviously we don't know that.
I mean, my hesitancy,
Every fourth word I can hear, Andy.
Come to the meeting, Steve.
Ross,
Really, I'm actually thinking we should not go to Zoom at
Okay.
this point.
Go back.
Sorry, Steve. What was that, Steve?
I am at the meeting, and I cannot hear if you guys don't speak right into your microphone.
I apologize.
Andy, I believe that we do have 6 weeks. This has lots of checks and balances, and it provides a process for the review of the land. I don't feel that, I don't feel like we're just giving away the farm without any structure behind it. I believe we've had parties that are interested in it, which prompted the discussion. And we have held their plans at bay because of our process. I would propose that we accept this and spend the next 6 weeks having the discussion as far as what the best purpose of the funds would be if we were to sell, but not delay it because of that at this point, because we have those checks and balances and process in place.
So at this point, any interested party in any city property we should consider selling? I mean, so anything we have is for sale?
Yeah, but it'd be
I wouldn't,
Might be
I wouldn't
entertaining,
say,
maybe.
I wouldn't say parks necessarily, but we did spend X number of dollars putting commercial water and sewer to that property,
Fair enough.
which is not currently utilized. It's a purpose, assuming that we follow this protocol, it will be a value-added proposition to that property,
Sure.
taking advantage of the structure that we put in. It's not commercially accessible from the highway, so it's not we're not selling something that's overly tangible, and we're asking something to relocate that could be outside of the city limits just as easily. We're not harming anything. So no, not everything is for sale, but when we have something that has infrastructure that we have paid for, I think having us look at it from the standpoint of the greater good of the taxpayers, because they paid for the bond to do the development of that water and sewer, that was my thinking.
Fair enough.
and I do feel like Andy, I don't feel pressured externally to move on this quickly. And in fact, we have not been moving quickly on this, right? And I think setting forth the RFP process is one more way for us to say, yes, we're interested in entertaining the options here. We're setting up these guidelines. For me, that length and process has been important because, one, we were talking to the school district and trying to establish partnership relationships. There was a possible school use there, and have repeatedly gone to staff asking if there is a desire to move out there. And I feel as the last time we talked about this at committee table, we heard clearly from staff that the recommendation was not to preserve for city use, and we have a no from the school interest.
Correct.
So now I'm out of sort of non-taxable entities who might want this land. So there's less of a reason to not move forward,
Sure.
because I would have fought for either of those
No, I don't
options.
disagree, and the school's been very clear now that they have no interest, and I'm not holding out hope for that by
Yeah.
any means. They made that very clear. I'm just wondering if the city may need it in the future, and I know everyone says, oh, we'll never develop that far out, or we'll never go that way. Well, I don't know in 100 years what Decorah is going to look
That
like.
looks like.
So we may not need it now.
I also just want to speak to. Oh, this is not. Sorry, guys. I want to speak to. I'm not sure that I see us finding as specific a use as you're asking for, Andy, in 6 weeks, right? So budget met before, in our budget committee meeting before we were here talking about budget books last year. we were talking to fire and police about needs assessments, like building needs assessments. Like, we need an architect in here to do some pretty intense study. I'd like that to be done before we decide where this chunk of money goes, right? And that's not happening in the next 6 weeks, right?
Right.
I meant that to be helpful, and I realized it wasn't. Sorry.
No, it is helpful.
But wouldn't you take it case by case when you're selling land?
Agreed. Yeah, agreed, Lorraine.
I would move for approval of Resolution 3098.
Second.
What are we on? 3.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Chisholm.
Aye.
Hadley.
Aye.
Luce. Carlson.
No.
Johnson. Neal.
Aye.
Bergen.
Aye.
Consider Resolution 3099, a resolution approving appointment of initial members of the Decorah Sustainability Commission for the city of Decorah. Yeah. Would you read the names on that, please?
Yeah, for sure. All right. Michelle Barnes and Ben Grimstead to serve for initial term of 2 years. Molly McNichol and Brent Parker serving for initial term of 3 years. Ann Mansfield serving initial term of 4 years. Jeremy Lights to serve for an initial term of 5 years. Jim Martin Schramm to serve for an initial term of 6 years.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Make a motion for the approval of Resolution 3099.
I have one question.
Listen, do you have a question? Randy, do you have a question?
I do.
before?
And it's something that we need to look at in all of our committees, but is there a potential for a conflict of interest when we have city employees on these commissions?
We've discussed
We-
it at
oh, I
committee
know.
before.
I know which one you're talking, I mean, Brent is an employee of the
I'm
city.
not naming names, I'm
Oh,
just
I'm
asking
sorry.
in general terms,
Yeah,
is there a potential for a conflict of interest in any board or commission with city employees?
I think if there is, they usually state and they don't vote. If that's,
Do they have to sign a conflict of interest form?
Doesn't a conflict of interest imply that they're going to be able to monetarily gain
Yeah,
something
that's
from
right.
it?
yeah, I think it.
So I
think
don't,
it
how
does.
would that, John, do you see that as a conflict of interest or not?
Depends upon the issue that's involved, whether or not there'll be a conflict of interest, and they would have to recuse themselves. I think we have at least 1 or 2 commissions maybe where we have
And we do.
city employees that members of the commissions. I can't remember if they're voting members though.
We have from time to time, I can think of a city employee that served on the tree board at one time, officially. Of course, our city forester and city engineer serve now as staff liaison to the tree board. We've had city staff members serve on the Human Rights Commission. I can't think of any others right off the top of my head.
There, can't remember the code provision, but there's a whole list of what conflicts you could run into for sitting on a commission. And I think an employee has more risk of running into some of those. So whoever, if there is an employee on any of our commissions, we should maybe spend some extra time with those employees to have them review the conflict of interest provisions so they know what they're getting into, and they can also be aware to be on the lookout for those things. But then I guess the question would be if there's potential, if there's a common potential for somebody to have a conflict sitting on a board, the board's work because this person can't vote, more often than somebody else who's sitting there.
Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
I think, for me, sitting here as city manager and advising, I think the more explicit conflict comes from trying to establish and recommend policy, which really should be the function of elected and appointed officials and not staff. Staff's job really needs to be to carry out the policy directives and wishes of our elected and appointed officials. So I think there's a challenge there in having any staff serve on any board, because then they tend to engage in policy direction. And I think that can get slippery.
So what if, since we don't actually have that policy currently, and we also have other commissions with that person, can we flip the term of the current, if there's a staff member on this, the staff member on this commission, can we have them be the first year, the 1-year term? And then I think you have them as a 2-year term. So switch a term. So if we do, I mean, I feel like we can't really tell a staff person they can't be on a commission when we don't have a policy right now that says they can't. So I guess why, if that's something we choose to do, we would have, what would we do with the staff members on our other commissions?
Would this person have any influence over the budget?
No.
Or be making recommendations about how city budgets?
They would make recommendations how city money is used, yes. Right? I mean, they're going to come to the sustainability plan and we want to do this.
But wouldn't some of that come before committees, council committees?
Yes.
That's what I meant. It would come
It
before
does,
the city
but I
council.
think, again, the basis is that your boards and commissions can help form policy.
Right, no, I see it. I'm just saying we don't currently have a policy. So therefore,
So just, I'm hearing all of this and also reflecting on the committee meeting we had where we were laying out the roster and discussing the number of members we'd like on this commission. And I think my memory at that meeting, 2 points came up. One is that many city staff are citizens of Decorah and are interested in serving their community in volunteer capacities. And I felt the sense in that room, I don't know how explicitly it was stated, but in general, that we were supportive of outlets for them to provide service. And then the second was we went back and forth quite a bit on that this commission in general would need staff interplay. Like we anticipated needing quite a bit of staff interplay, and the volunteering of someone to serve on the commission is a way to get there a little bit. I mean, we already know we're making a lot of asks to Jeremy. We know we're making a lot of asks to you, Chad, on this. I mean, I think there was some benefit to this exact format at that committee council. So just bringing those points up because I remember them.
Well, I really apologize, and it's basically my hay fever, just like it was last year at this time. You know, we also, if you look on the next thing down, we have a lot of openings on committees and boards. And if there's people who are qualified to be and interested to be on some of those commissions, then we just take care of the fact that if there's some kind of a vote, they would most likely be coming, just like they've said, to a committee. And if there's an issue, then it's brought up at that time, and then that person would have to excuse from voting on certain things.
yeah, I agree with that. Have we had a motion?
We've
We
had
have a motion and a second.
in second, and we have, no, we haven't had a second, I don't think yet.
I have a motion by Carlson and a second by Luz written on my notes.
Okay,
What do you have?
all right, and we've had discussion. Roll call.
Carlson?
Aye.
Luz? Aye. Johnson?
Aye.
Hadley?
Aye.
Bergen?
Aye.
Chisel?
No.
Neal?
Aye.
Okay? All right, consider board and commission appointments.
Nope, item number 15.
Don't, okay, let me get, oh my goodness, yes, I almost forgot. Sorry about that, Kristen.
Well, and
Oh, we got a couple.
you got a few more before you even get to Kristen.
All right.
Item number 15 is consider ordinance 1247, amending chapter 8.20 of the municipal code of the city of Decorah related to junk vehicles. Second reading.
There we got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I make a motion approving ordinance 1247 and waiving the third reading.
I think you have to,
You have to take
Vote
care of
I
it.
think you got to do the first one first.
Sorry, okay. I make a motion that we consider ordinance 1247.
It's a nice way to lead us all to know where you're going.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, roll call.
Neal,
Aye.
Luce,
Aye.
Carlson.
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Hadley,
Aye.
Chisel,
Aye.
Bergen.
Aye.
Have we had any comments, Chad, at City
No,
Hall?
I had one phone call today, and they were just asking for clarification, but they didn't support or object.
Okay. I'd move to waive the,
Can I move to
Waive and
third
adopt.
reading and adopt?
You'll be right in line behind Randy.
Yeah, motion made by Chisel, seconded by Luce.
Yes.
Okay. Any discussion to waive
And adopt.
and adopt? Roll call?
Chisel,
Aye.
Luce,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Carlson,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Hadley,
Aye.
Bergen.
Aye.
Consider approval of COVID-19 emergency response staff and public facilities.
So there is a COVID response plan update in your packet. And I did write out some backgrounds there, so I think I'll just kind of read through those. Significant changes include opening all public facilities except for the library for business. Certainly not as usual. While we proposed opening this facility, for example, we do still intend to have distancing protocol, just like you see here with chairs and whatnot around this chambers. We would still try to separate and protect City Hall staff, Park Rec staff, Fire Department staff. So even though the building's open, there'd still be restricted, controlled, or protected access, including hygiene and social distancing as recommended by the Department of Public Health and the Governor's Office. Employees shall wear masks per guidelines and follow proper hygiene. That's spelled out in our plan. Council, board, and commission meetings would resume meeting in person. All meetings would continue to provide Zoom access, just like tonight would be our example. And meeting spaces would adhere to distancing protocols. Staff changes would, and we've pretty much been doing this for the last couple of weeks, certainly follow the FFCRA as established by the federal government. Can't think if there's anything else on it. Am I forgetting something through that? So, and probably the biggest part of that is protocol for opening the pool. And Andy did provide you kind of an overview and background of what that looks like. Certainly he's here to answer any other questions. But otherwise, we would ask for council approval for that plan moving forward.
So I have a question about masks. I always ask about masks. So some of us are wearing masks, some of us are not wearing masks. It seems to me the recommendation is to wear masks. So does that mean people should be masked? It's a very uncomfortable conversation. Like you go downtown, you go to stores. Some stores are like, you have to have a mask, and some are you don't. I guess for me, I feel uncomfortable when people aren't wearing masks. It's really, it's not as if this pandemic is going away. Our numbers are increasing. And the more the numbers increase, the more that one of us could walk in here asymptomatic and don't know it. So I guess, I mean, it's uncomfortable to say that, but I guess here, I feel like everybody should be wearing a mask.
So I guess just one comment. I think it depends on the advisability of wearing masks. I think depends on your source. For example, I know Dr. Michael Osterholm came out with some comments that masks are important, but it's not the end-all be-all, right? And then I would read from our response plan that says, it might be this one. Employees shall wear masks when working outside their building, when in the vicinity of others, and/or if more than one employee has work on a particular task in or out of enclosed spaces. It is permissible for staff that routinely work together to not wear masks if each individual involved is comfortable. Masks need not be worn if working alone in areas where it's unlikely to be within 6 feet of another person. Masks shall be carried on persons at all times in the event a situation arises which warrants it to be worn.
I share Emily's discomfort, right? It's an uncomfortable conversation. The CDC issued new guidance on Friday. It says wear masks, right? I know that there are many sources that say many things, but I guess I'm listening to the CDC right now. And I think that the guidance that's coming out is fair in knowing that we don't have all the answers here.
And I do agree. I mean, if staff are working together on a daily basis, you're kind of in each other's circle.
Yeah.
But when we come to a meeting like this, like I haven't seen all of you in some of you 6 weeks, 9 weeks, right? And so it's more uncomfortable when you're like, you got your circle that you have to maintain, but I'm coming in twice a month. I'm not around you every day, so it's kind of like you just keep making your circle bigger unintentionally, and without a mask, again. If numbers were going down, if things were looking the other direction, but that's not where we are. And at some point, us as a city has to say, look, we recognize numbers are continuing to climb. This pandemic is far from over. And the CDC says wear masks. And I always think about the meme with the people wearing pants who like pee on themselves as opposed to peeing on everyone else.
I'm sure I got that one.
Sorry, I just do think about the whole like.
I'm interested in all of council's feedback on this. I do think that we're a decision-making body of diverse opinions for a reason, right? My guiding light and what I keep asking myself is how am I going to feel if it is our body that is the newspaper article that came out yesterday that the baseball player had COVID and now the whole team is infected? Or I don't want to be that, right? Early on, there was a mayor in Iowa who was infected. That's my guiding light. Like, how will any of us feel if we are that headline? And if we could have taken action to prevent that?
How would,
As I recall the discussion on June 4th, I recall Emily saying that she and her had attended training at the hospital. And the hospital was asked by them, how can the city help? And I thought I heard the answer was that the city could model appropriate behavior by saying that when people come into city buildings to do their business, they need to wear a mask. That would help set the model and the expectations for the rest of the community to have the city making that statement. So I would be in favor of saying that part of our COVID plan to reopen is the plan of having any citizen, any person coming into the city building wearing a mask.
I can only speak for myself, who can't hardly speak. But for myself, I'm a vulnerable person. And so if I have distance or if I'm outside, it makes a difference. If I go into a store, I wear the mask. I have felt comfortable here, but I can understand why you didn't feel comfortable. I know that I'm not infecting anybody. I do know when I'm out and about, I wear it, like when I go into the post office or where more people are there. I do think when, I know that Chad's office is working on setting up a piece where they will have a door, but they will also have plastic I think the Park and Rec is doing the same thing. The other piece is enforcement. As far as if you state you have to have a mask on, you can encourage, but enforcing becomes an issue as well. And I think it is really hard because one day you hear from CDC, one year you hear from someplace else. For me, you're supposed to not touch your mask. You're not supposed to do anything with it, And so I think there's a piece also of individual, for individual consideration. It's encouraging people to wear masks. But I think about the enforcement as well. If you state that they should be wearing masks.
I mean, is it,
But to be clear, council's concern is members of the general public coming into our building.
well, no, a meeting like this. So a member of the general public comes into your building, they're here for 5 minutes. We've been sitting in the room now for almost an hour and a half together. So if one of us has COVID, then we might all, if we're not wearing masks. I mean, there is a certain amount of, you don't know that you're not infected. I don't know that I'm not infected, I saw my parents this weekend. They're from Iowa City. None of us know. That's the whole point of this. And I do think, I guess I'm interested selfishly on boards and commissions, right? Because to me, I feel like Kirk and Steve right now played it right. And I feel like I probably should have stayed on Zoom. And so if we're going to encourage people to start coming to boards and commissions and sitting in rooms together, talking for an hour and a half, I know they're inconvenient. I know they're hard to hear from. I'm about to go teach, right, with a face mask probably eventually. I mean, it's the times that we're in right now. And it makes me uncomfortable to have someone, it may be allergies, it may be asthma, I don't know. But that's the point, we don't know. But we do know that germs spread when you talk. We know that germs spread when you cough. And it's not wearing a mask when you're quiet, it's actually when you're talking that your germs are literally going out. You can see the science behind it. So.
Well, and I think there's been a lot out too about if people are sick, you put the mask on. If people are having issues or have had temperatures, you put the mask on. I think Park and Rec or any of the other places, if there's an issue, they take your temperature when you come in. It's not clear cut, not only on our level, but also governmental level from the state and from national. It's hard when you're out and about and people choose not to wear them. I know that's hard. It's just, I'm not in complete agreement that people should wear them.
I mean, we give
all the
people
time.
tickets for not wearing seatbelts. It's not as if, you get a
What-
choice.
Yeah, but that's,
It's
What
still
if we,
safety. It's a
what if
public
we
safety
split the
issue.
difference? There currently are no active cases in Winter County according to public health. What if we do set a metric, which is something that, many of us have hoped that there would be metrics, that decisions would be based on public health and metrics. What if we said that if the rate of infection goes above 0, that we require masks inside buildings, and we provide them, right? I don't see any provision for providing,
I mean, there's masks right there.
right, but in the door, like, right when you walk in. Many of the stores in Water Street are requiring masks and have masks and hand sanitizer right when you walk in the door. They are doing it because of the enclosed space. Not so much necessarily like, I know break rooms are a challenge, right? I know that other areas, I feel a little bit better here because we're spaced at 6 feet, even though we're talking. But I am concerned about the safety of the people in offices and in more enclosed spaces where air exchange isn't possible because you are talking all day and you are exposed more. So I guess I would like to require masks in enclosed spaces for certain as you reopen.
Staff has ordered hand sanitizer units, and we do have the masks. I mean, it'd be very easy for us to say, new people into the building,
Right.
here you go.
Have a mask.
It's easy to do.
And it would protect staff as well,
Well, and we're trying to do other things with that too, with plastic and all that kind of stuff.
right? But from yourselves, when you don't know if you're symptomatic.
Well, we've all been running around together for 3 months already, so we're.
But
Well, and I mean, that's what I think, you know, there's a certain amount of, like, when you go to work and you see the same people at work, you start to get comfortable, you know their basic routines, but,
there was
no, I mean, you don't, but
there
there's.
was one staff person that thought she had been exposed, who started wearing the mask, worked the mask, you moved the person away. They've been
One thing,
doing,
yeah, and to that front, you know, in Wanda's office, we've been very
Yeah,
open
very-
about where we're going, what we're doing, who we're seeing, and just, you know, so we come in Monday and say, you know, I'm gonna stay over here for a while, right? That kind of thing.
Right. I will tell you that my staff has talked to me about this,
Mhm.
and there is going to be probably a serious revolt if they have to sit there all day in a mask. They are
that is
absolutely
hard.
opposed to wearing masks all day in that office, just so you know.
I think the protocol in that office also is whenever you use the restroom, you wipe everything down. When you're done at the end of the day or the beginning of the day, you wipe everything down.
We do absolutely everything we can. Everything is practical. I mean, we take every measure possible to make sure that, and we did a total deep clean on Friday. The entire staff cleaned that office all day, cleaned and sanitized it all day. There was not a surface that was not touched in that office. And that was more in, you know, in anticipation of getting open on this week. But, I mean, we have taken great lengths in that office to make sure that everybody's safe there.
What if you masked up when people came in? You know, it may be that you're comfortable with each other, but it would be very uncomfortable if one enters the building and they don't know you, they're not part of your circle. Even if you do have plexi, you're putting the burden on them to feel uncomfortable in a public health setting.
So here's and I appreciate that, but here's kind of our operating procedure. So if anybody comes in now, first of all, they have to call or knock or something because the building's on lockdown, right?
But it won't be.
Right, but our offices will be, right? And that window out in the lobby is gonna be the interface to inside. So people won't be able to go into the administrative offices.
Okay.
What about
We'll
that's
take
good.
that window out and put a piece of plastic in there with a hole in it,
That's good.
okay?
Well, it'll be glass.
Well,
Well-
yeah,
It'll be glass.
yeah.
But you're going to have you're not going
We're gonna
to
have a
let,
color window.
No.
That's
Plus, the doors are going to have combinations on them,
in the
just
lobby,
like,
right? And as we've been doing, when we have somebody come in and they want to see a plat or a map, or we either just talk to them out in the lobby, or we bring them in here and have a one-on-one, so they're not getting in. We'll continue that as well. There aren't members of the public like there used to be in the inner admin offices. Okay.
well, and you're
There-
working
so-
at putting numbered or key things on the doors.
Yeah, and we'll keep those locked down.
And at boards and commissions, so in a setting like this, I could imagine looking out, if this room was filled and no one out there was wearing a mask, that would be daunting.
Sure, I get that.
And then if someone's coughing, would someone be willing to stand up and say, can you please put on a mask? I mean, that's the thing, is that it's enforcement actually becomes a lot easier. If wearing a mask is the norm, it feels more uncomfortable to not wear a mask. And I guess I'd rather get to a point where you feel uncomfortable not wearing a mask than where you feel uncomfortable wearing one.
In answer to your question, Rob, I don't think anyone is gonna would have a problem putting on a mask if somebody did come in the office.
okay. And it just wasn't clear to me that you were putting a window in and serving and not exposing themselves to all of you. that makes sense to me.
Well, and part of putting the key, whatever you call them, the keypads on the doors is for general safety as well. They'll be on the administration doors. I think they're to be considered for Park and Rec, so it isn't going to have the flow going in and out of the offices like it used to.
From my perspective, and I tried to articulate this back a few days via email, I feel most onus on us in making decisions when we are drawing people together. So I appreciate all of the sort of daily interactions where a citizen may be choosing to make an interaction in person that could be made over the phone or could be made online. It's different to me when the way to attend a meeting in public is to come into a closed room and then not have the safety precautions that we know might help enacted, right? Like if we can meet outside, great, I would feel so much more, comfortable right now, but that's not conducive to the work that we do. I appreciate that Zoom continues to be an option, but clearly if we are meeting some portion in person, I understand citizens' desire to be here to understand what's actually happening. And so when we become the draw, I see us then needing to respond with an increased sense of responsibility. And the best knowledge I have right now means masks are better than no masks.
So whenever there would be a committee meeting and they come in, then we would ask them to put masks on.
And we would wear masks. Or we go back to just being on Zoom. I mean, that's the other thing. I mean, then I get not everyone likes Zoom, but there's some Zoom advantages. One, it's recorded. Two, we've had better participation from community members when we're all on Zoom. But I think this hybrid is actually harder. Like, I think it legitimately is probably hard for Kirk and Steve to hear us. I guess.
Well, I can't hear you.
Right, right. I mean, I think this hybrid model of having the council half here, half there is hard. I think it's a necessity if we're not going to bend. But to me, when we were all on Zoom, it was working much better than tonight, in my mind.
Only had the technical difficulties of Zoom as well, at times.
At times, but
Well, what's the direction?
I'd move to approve the COVID emergency response.
As it's listed?
And use common sense.
Do we have a second?
I would like to know what would trigger closure as well.
yeah.
Reclosure?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a question for me?
Yeah, are you suggesting a matrix?
Yeah,
Are you
well-
suggesting a matrix, Ross, or?
I'm suggesting a matrix, yep.
Okay.
I mean,
My standard would be to go back to the governor's proclamations or the Department of Public Health, right? I mean, if you want to suggest something else, a matrix or a standard or a percentage or something, or number of cases, I guess that'd be at your discretion.
well, then I would. I would suggest that anytime that Winneshiek County has more than, I don't know. I would like to hear what public health has to say about,
I'd like to hear what the hospital has to say, actually. I mean,
or a closure.
yeah, public health is going to take direction from state public health. I do strongly encourage us to listen to our hospital more. I mean, our hospital is who has to deal with the repercussions of what we decide, right? So as the Winneshiek County residents, they get COVID, it's going to be our hospital's responsibility to take care of them. And so I guess I feel a little bit more allegiance to what the hospital is suggesting than the state public health, because they're taking into consideration what's happening all over the state, and I think we have a responsibility here.
I think currently the hospital has opened a little more than what they were. So would you say?
We could mimic the hospital.
If if the hospital closes down,
That we
then
mimic the
then
hospital.
you close down.
I would be comfortable with that.
That'd be Winship Medical.
Correct.
You have a motion right now on the table for as is.
I think it's going to die
Chad,
for lack.
Chad,
Well-
can I ask just a question in terms of moving forward? I am not opposed to anything that's in here. I'd like to see more, right? Like, I think there's a couple of questions in terms of safety procedures in public board and commission meetings, and reclosure considerations that should be added. Like, is there a way for us to move forward this tonight to let staff open up in the ways that we've talked about, but also come back and add those things at our next council meeting?
You could add them now, just a simple
Well,
motion. so-
I feel like we might need
Well-
some data I don't have at my fingertips,
Okay.
like going to the hospital board.
Well, actually,
Before we talk
this has
about
always
the-
been just voted by the city council. So if you vote tonight and then you learn more, you'd vote on it again at the next city council meeting with the additions.
So I might recommend, since the criteria or the benchmark maybe is a little unknown, or we need more data or research or something, it sounds like maybe there's support, at least by some, to make masks mandatory, that you include that in this plan, but that you set the data aside until you know what that data is, or what source you're going to get that data.
And I guess from my perspective, they're mandatory when you're coming to a meeting and you're not in the space, or if someone's entering your office who's not there. I don't think we have to force staff to sit at their desk all day and wear a mask if that's, so I want to be clear on that. It's really this situation, any type of board, commission, or if someone enters an office who's not regularly
Staff.
scheduled to be there, everyone masks up, kind of.
Non-resident?
Non-resident, yeah. You don't live in the building.
I mean, there are more doors to staff offices than the one we're talking about. Do department heads need to weigh in on scenarios that we're not thinking about?
Well, several of them are here. Other doors, access,
So-
ways in.
Well, all the doors will be locked. Like, for instance, into our office,
Oh.
the one into the conference room, that will remain locked. The main door into our office will remain locked. So that kind of takes care of our office. And if they're coming to see us, will come to that window. And if they need to come in for whatever reason, we can do that. If we need to meet them out in the hall or in here, we can do that. So, and I know the fire department, I think, is kind of doing they've been talking about exactly how they're going to handle that. I think they intend to leave some of their doors
Yeah.
locked until further notice as well. So in Park Rec, I guess they'll have to kind of decide what they've talked in there too, and I'll let Andy speak to that. But they've talked in there too about how they're going to handle traffic in their office.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, I asked a vague question because I didn't want to put Andy on the spot, right? Like, there's a lot of places I can walk up to a park rec staff. I know that, right? We're not talking about what that engagement looks like, and I'm just saying, I don't know what's going through department heads right now. And so that's why I was saying, is there a way to move forward and also to come back and be additive when we've gotten clarification around masks?
Well, we do require, so park rec, park staff, mowing staff, campground, streets, those water that are out there, we require them to have it with it, have a mask with them, and to wear it if they're gonna get into groups. But if they're out there by themselves mowing or, whatever it is they do, they're okay to not wear it.
And I guess I would also just remind everybody that, as we've gone through this process, we've changed your policy. That
Yeah.
has to be the fourth time. So there's nothing that says you can't change the policy at any time, if that's a question.
I think that was my point as
Because
well.
you've been doing that all along as things have changed.
Right.
The policy's been updated. So that can be done at any time the council feels it's necessary or warranted.
So would it be safe to say that the piece that needs to be added in this current one would be that to require masks when they are in smaller conference meetings, commission meetings,
And city council meetings.
and city council.
Yeah, so I guess what I'm hearing is, this policy plus masks mandatory for non-residents. And that would include general public day-to-day or board and commission meetings, if they're here. And board and commission meetings have been kind of hit and miss. At least for me, for Board of Adjustment and zoning, it's been about half here, half Zoom, just in the last couple of meetings. Prior to that, it was all Zoom, right?
Do you like the hybrid model? Curious.
Yeah, I think it works okay. There are technical glitches, and it's hard for P and Z and Board of Adjustment. It's hard to show maps and things that on Zoom. It makes it hard. It's better to meet in person when you can roll things out, right? There's pros and cons both ways.
Okay, so currently we just have a motion. There's not been anybody that's seconded. Going once, going twice, motion fails. So now we need further direction.
Randy, do you want to make a motion subject to the changes that were discussed?
Yeah, because we can always amend this at a further meeting. I mean, we could take what they have right now, so they have something to start working with now, and then at our next meeting, we can do whatever amendments we want to it. That's why it really, yeah, okay, well, plus amendments.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Aye.
Hadley?
Aye.
I don't know what we're voting on.
I don't know. I didn't
To
either.
consider the approval of the COVID-19 emergency response for city staff and public facilities as presented, plus the amendments that we will add to it.
No, well, we've added some already here, correct?
I don't know. I don't know.
The masks
Masks required.
required.
Mask mandatory for I call it non-resident.
I wouldn't say non-residents, but I think people think Winnebago County.
Yeah, okay.
How about non-employees?
Yeah, one is better at words than I.
Anywhere or city hall?
Just,
Are you telling us
No.
to turn every kid away at the pool that doesn't have?
no, I know that.
No.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about
Excuse me.
city hall.
Inside.
City Hall.
Yeah. And I actually think inside is, we said, no?
I don't, I just need to own that I didn't ask my questions before this meeting, and therefore I feel uncomfortable. I am in support of board and commission attendees and participants wearing masks and not, I'm gray beyond that.
Okay. So what if we said city hall, municipal building? Does that help? Because I wasn't thinking the pool either. I mean, I really am thinking this building and confined spaces.
We have it as a
Municipal.
recommendation, not a requirement.
And in your building, there's airflow because you don't have windows, or in the pool specifically, I mean. Yeah.
Well, and the other buildings, like the water department, street department, that they have almost no visitors.
Right.
And like, for example, the street department, all their garage doors are up and
Right.
most of the time anyways.
Campground.
So Steve, the motion is, masks required in the municipal building for non-employees.
And at council meetings and board meetings,
And board
correct?
and commission meetings.
I'll put mine on why vote.
Okay,
Hadley?
Aye.
No, he was asking.
No, you seconded.
he's on third.
Mayor, roll.
Roll call.
Chisholm?
Aye.
Hadley?
Aye.
Johnson? Aye. Luce? Aye. Carlson?
Aye.
Neal?
Aye.
Bergen?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Consider amending the 2020 farmers market lease by expanding use of city parking facilities.
Kristen has been waiting patiently.
Yeah. You know, I worked with her on time, and I told her to come at 6:15. Well, we still would have been a whole hour off, so. That's okay.
Mayor, I'll let you kind of open this one up. 'Cause I
Okay.
know you met with Kristen.
And Kristen and I met. Do you want to come up to the podium, and are you far enough? Are you comfortable there at the podium? Yeah. Okay. Kristen and I met, but what I'm going to do is have you state what your request is.
Sure.
And then you can also state the considerations. We met, and then Chief Smuchler met as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for adding me to the agenda last minute tonight. My name's Kristen Egan, and I'm the market manager this year for the Decorah Farmers Market. So earlier in the season, the governor put out a proclamation saying what farmers markets could and couldn't do, and it was recently revised a couple days ago. One of the things that remains consistent in the governor's recommendations is that social distancing of 6 feet be abided by anyone at the market, which, as you might imagine, can be very difficult when it's a gathering space. We are intentionally trying to attract customers to these vendor stalls. And so one thing that we've been doing to encourage that, sorry, my mask keeps falling down, is to space all of our vendor stalls out by one space. So to have our vendor stalls are 10 feet, one parking space, and then we'll have a parking space empty, and then another one. In doing that, we would, on a typical year, we would be able to fit 46 vendors into the space that we currently use. And that means this year that's only half of that, that's 23. And so that just means very different capacity for the number of local businesses that we're able to serve. And we're hoping that an expansion of that space would allow us to maintain good public health measures while still allowing for maximum number of vendors. And so some of the ideas that we got to talk about earlier today that I pitched, I got some good feedback on. It sounded like they weren't going to work out as well. One being the gravel lot across Hively Street probably has too much traffic to make much sense to use that, and not to mention pedestrians crossing the street. Another idea was to expand to the east, which would be across Court Street, and that while Court Street may have lower traffic than Hively Street, there's still the question of people crossing that street, and in addition, taking away some parking from downtown businesses. So yet another option that was explored was to expand to the south using the full lower lot instead of just part of it. And that seemed to be a favorable option from the mayor and from our chief of police. And also that there might be some challenge with coordinating with Oneida Co-op on the deliveries that they get in the mornings on Saturdays. So, and then yet another option that was come up with earlier today was to consider the use of the fairgrounds. Unfortunately, in talking to my board this afternoon, that would be cost prohibitive to use the fairgrounds. So the question is, at this point, I'm requesting to either expand the use of our current space to the south towards the co-op, or to the north across Court Street.
And did you have a board meeting this afternoon?
Yes, I did.
And how did they feel about using that whole parking lot where you are now? Was that a positive piece?
Yeah, they did. They liked that
Okay.
idea, and there was still the question of, well, what happens how do we keep our customers safe when a truck would have to go through to how could we keep that Day Street kind of parking area, that extension of Day Street, to be able to continue to move traffic through there? So
Right.
we brainstormed a little on that, and maybe only vendors who are offering curbside pickup only would be over there. So that's another option.
And were you able to talk to the co-op about, and did they say, is it regularly on Saturdays that they do that?
Yes, yeah.
Is it regularly on Wednesdays in the afternoon as well?
In the afternoon, not as much. It tends to be smaller distributors.
Okay.
The larger distributors come in the morning, and larger distributors have more to unload, and so it takes them longer. And yeah, I did get to talk to David Lester, the manager over there, and he said that could potentially be problematic, if not a real challenge, to kind of plug up that throughway.
When we talked too, we said, this is such a weird year. And we're having to make concessions with the swimming pool and all the other things we do. And it's just really hard to figure out how to allow that to happen so that you can have the number of vendors that you want and still be able to maintain the distance.
Could you have
So wait.
could you have a larger amount on Wednesday when the truck isn't an issue? Have a larger number of vendors attend one day? And, I mean, I know Saturday is the day, right? But,
Well, they're just completely different customers, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
but if the truck isn't an issue on Wednesday, if we could allow more vendors on Wednesdays safely, and then scale back on Saturdays to accommodate the shared use of, and public safety concerns?
That's a good idea. I could approach the co-op with that.
What it,
Can I, oh.
go ahead, Johanna.
Oh, I was just going to ask more about sorry, guys, about closing Court Street.
Yeah, close
Could
the
we
door.
close Court Street at Copyland
Yeah.
forever,
I think
actually? Sorry,
if
did
you
I
look-
say that out loud?
But the one thing when you're looking at that Dayspring, that lane, is you come in from down at the other end and you go out, and so there's a flow of traffic issue there as well if you start closing off part of that parking lot.
What if you
But you would-
close
What
court,
if we
just
close,
the
what
one
if you
direction?
closed Hively Street between River and Court,
We did on Hively.
and then put a sign up by the John Klein, road closed Saturday mornings?
So you're talking about closing Hively completely
The one
Yeah.
behind John Klein.
from,
River to Court, just that block behind there.
And
then-
on a non-school day, route down by a school.
Well, I'm thinking Saturday is mainly
Yeah.
a big day, because Wednesday seems to be a little bit smaller when I drive by and see the vendors.
Yep.
And on Wednesday, if you have an overflow, then move to
So
the
like-
south toward.
so like, let's say somebody is coming, let's look one way or the other, like, let's say they're coming from Decorah Bank.
Okay.
You'd have to
a-
close,
You'd have a sign up there that says road closed ahead.
so Hively would be closed from State to,
Well, you could still come down and you could turn on Court and go park back behind the buildings if you were going to be shopping, but no through traffic to the post
I
office.
don't
You're
think
going to
I
have to come
get
down.
what, I don't.
You're
think I get-
basically closing directly behind the parking lot, but you're allowing traffic to circle back in through Dry Spring.
Dayspring.
Dayspring Lane.
Okay, now I got you. So it'd be from River to Court. That street would just be closed.
Did I say that?
Yes.
You said it Court to River, so.
You got a cough, not a hearing
I
aid.
am a vulnerable person. What can I say? I think I want, to hear, what Dave Smuchler, thinks of that as well. Now, if the point then would be is, would they be able to use, let's say that.
They could use the street for vendor space.
But
They
then
could
can they
park-
also use the parking lot then too?
So
Would
could
they
use
go
the
that
parking-
way?
They would use the parking lot for parking.
They could use that, yeah, just block that off so somebody doing recycling doesn't try and get
I
back out
see.
on Highway.
just
But then
closing-
but then your vendors, if they park in those parking,
Yeah.
make two-sided parking temporary on Saturdays, then you're having plenty of distance side to side with them, because they can go on the median on both sides actually, or down the center of the street.
And it eliminates the pedestrian safety crossing
Yeah.
issue that's always kind of there anyway.
Now, the thing would be is that would give you a few more spots.
Would it give you enough?
I haven't measured it. I think it would. I
Well-
mean, given we can fit a dozen on one side, so it's currently an aisle with two sides. We can fit a dozen vendors spaced on each side, approximately. Yeah.
And we talked about like a vendor that doesn't require as much. Would you be able to have them at that, in the co-op parking lot, just that
On the
first
south end?
row there? Like just on Saturday from 8 to noon?
I
So
think
that-
I would still probably make sure that they're kind of a drive-through type of vendor only, as not to
Oh, I see what you mean.
clog that.
I see.
Just so there's no pedestrian traffic. So it's not a walkway essentially. So it maintains
Dave
the driveway.
Smutzler, did you understand what we were saying?
The audio is terrible. I can't even pick up every second word.
Okay. Go ahead, Randy.
Okay, Dave, between River Street and Court Street, if we block off Hively on Saturday mornings, and then maybe put a direct warning up on the end that through traffic on Hively is closed until noon. So the farmers market people can park on both sides of Hively out there and then use the center of the street, but you can still turn around on Court to get back into Day Spring Lane to park and do your shopping.
I think I heard you saying that you're gonna use Highway Street behind Day Spring Lane.
Correct. Block it off between Court and River.
It's like a block.
Yeah, 1 block there.
I didn't hear the rest of it. Is that where you're gonna have parking for
Vendors,
the vendors? Is that where you're gonna have the vendors set up?
Vendors.
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 Yeah, we could probably do that. We could block off the 48-hour lot. There's a lot of people coming and going on Saturdays and Wednesdays too, I guess, for the recycling aspect of it. But I guess we could block off that entrance too, just let them move through there.
Uh-huh.
Right. You could get in on the Claiborne entrance if you had to do, if you need to do your recycling at that time. But if you came down Hively, you could still turn on Court and head back to the east behind the businesses if you were coming down there to do any shopping.
I didn't catch any of that.
You can still come,
Yeah, I think.
Can they hear from your mic any better, Chad?
No, I turned it off.
Okay. Oh, that's the static, never mind.
Who has the best mic in here?
I think it's a great idea. Can you hear me?
Who can you hear the best?
If you put it right up to your
think
mouth,
we
they can
did.
hear you pretty well.
I know. So, Dave, I think you've got it. We were thinking about, you come down Hively, right? We'd still want you to be able to sort of hit the farmer's market and turn up on Court and circle back around if you want to park there, right? So that would still be accessible. And we'd want recyclers to be able to come in on Claiborne, go by the recycling tubs and be directed in a U right back out that Claiborne exit. And we would use River to Court. On the street, there would be vendors and pedestrians that would be fully closed off that 1 block for farmers market extension.
That's what I understood you saying.
Okay.
I love it.
I love it too.
I think it's committing to local economy and local foods. I think it's modeling what we've all heard on Facebook of citizens saying, if it's safer and healthier to be outside, give us space to be outside. Yeah.
I have a question. Currently, do the vendors pay the city? Do they,
No, the market does.
the market's free? And do you know what the cost is if you were out at the fairgrounds?
I didn't talk to the fair board today.
Okay,
I left them a message, but.
okay.
So in the past, it's $300 to rent out the Dane and Lansing building.
Now, if you didn't use the Dana Lansing building, would
Like-
that be where you would be able to be out in the grass area and back out around?
Are you thinking the large grass area where like the carnival sets
the
up?
midway. Yeah.
The
Oh,
midway, or-
there, yeah.
Or are you thinking like the gravel lot next to the?
Well, I was
Dane and
thinking a different one,
Yeah.
but where the carnival usually sets up?
Okay. So some board members that have been on the board in the past and talked to the fair in the past, this is all second.
Right.
Because I just started this job, but,
Right,
so they mentioned that there had been concern in the past about having a lot of car traffic out there, vendors driving over the grass and ripping up grass, and that that could,
Okay.
but that
It's
could
probably no
help.
worse than a race night.
Right.
Right.
Hey, you know, the other thing is, we talked about this too, a couple things. One, this year is different. The other thing is, for that fair board, it's going to be different for them too, because they're losing revenue from the fair.
Did want the income.
And then also, we talked about the fact that, you know, at some point, the farmer's market could grow and grow and grow, and needs a space to grow and grow, you know. I think they're going to come to you no matter where you are, and I understand not having money to be able to pay $300 for the Dana Lansing building, but maybe to go back and ask them again about that area where the carnival usually sets up, if it's a possibility for 1 year.
Lorraine,
Although I
are you,
wouldn't want to give up the
are
farmer's
you
market.
worried about our option? Like,
Yeah.
we have a no more money
I-
cost option.
No, I understand that. I'm not just sure how much gain you're going to get by having that.
Oh, I think you're gonna get 2 more.
Okay,
Yeah, stay
No,
downtown.
I mean, it's not, there's only parking on one side of Hively, so maybe you're not gonna get 2 full lanes. I mean, right, you have to measure it, Kristen, but I think you're gonna get 12 for sure.
Yeah. And I think it helps our downtown businesses. I mean, I think having the farmer's market where people get down there gets people downtown. I would hate to see us.
okay, you got it. You got to put your,
I think having the farmer's market downtown gets people downtown. So I guess I would hope that we could make it work for you downtown.
okay, so in that case, then what we need is to amend the farmer's market to what you just stated.
Randy left, he needs to say it again.
He left.
It is worth stating that right now, we do not have the need for expansion. I'm merely coming to this meeting because in the future, our season always starts with fewer vendors and then grows, and the max was 40 last year. And so that's where it's like, if it grows in the way that a season typically does, then we'll be out of space in a couple of weeks, maybe potentially before your next council.
Okay, that's where we're putting it on, so
That's-
that you could have it before the next city council
Yeah.
meeting.
Correct, yeah.
So do we need to start closing Hively now?
We do not need, the closing would need to happen once the vendor count gets above 24.
Okay.
So if we approve it tonight, you can just be in contact with the city
Correct,
when it needs to close?
yes.
Now,
that work?
my one question also, is that just for Saturdays and not for Wednesdays?
I think that's something that would need to be determined depending on the co-op's delivery schedule. Because that's how the trucks get in to deliver. And that's the reason that we needed to keep that driveway
Yeah.
for cars to be able to drive.
But I mean, for the closure from River to Court on
Oh, sorry, no,
Hively?
the Day Spring Lane closure?
No.
The part that's part of the.
Because they're talking about going from River, that's the corner,
Correct,
to Court.
right.
And my question is would that be just on Saturdays?
She needs to talk to the co-op. Because if there are Saturday deliveries between 7 and 10 a.m. to the back door, what we need to know from the co-op is, are there 3 to 6 p.m. deliveries on Wednesdays to
But
their
why
back
couldn't we
door?
just make it the same Wednesdays and Saturdays and close Hively?
Because if they had a delivery, I think, is what you're saying.
No,
we
I mean,
close Hively, we're not going to hurt the co-op.
I think I suspect that after we all reflect on this, there's going to be more staff involvement with road sign closage than there is to parking lot closage. So I actually would be, if the co-op could handle having restricted access to their delivery bay, using the parking lot on Wednesday might be okay. I mean, it's been a minute since I worked at the co-op, but Saturday morning is like large truck delivery. So I totally hear that the Hively closure makes sense on Saturday mornings.
If we were to close Hively, would it also make sense to have some more outdoor eating areas separated at 6 feet? I know we're not trying to have people gather, but in conjunction with this discussion, we've also had Betterment and some restaurants be interested in having more outdoor eating areas. If we do a closure or whatnot, would it be possible for us to add more picnic spaces at 6 feet or whatnot, and encourage masks.
I wonder if it
It's
would work,
outside.
would it work to grant so that they can work between now and the next city council meeting? They'll be able to bring us back more information as well, but so that they're covered for having River to Hively closed
Two different things.
versus expand, and she's got to figure out how many she has.
Can we just say that we're good with it and let staff figure it out?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you could do that.
We're good with
Okay.
it. Let's vote.
I'd move, I'd move to direct staff to amend the farmer's market lease to include expansion to both the full parking lot that they currently operate in and the closure of Hively between Court and River based on vendor stall need, communication with farmer's market in the next week,
And communication with the co-op.
and communication with the co-op.
And then is there a piece that states that the staff would work with that piece?
I said that first, yes.
Okay.
I second it.
So just under discussion, just to remind everybody that the woolen mill does have a claim to some of those spaces.
They do,
We just approved,
I think the market understands that.
right.
So the market either needs to work with woolen mill to use those spaces, or you can't include those spaces.
Right.
Right. Okay, any further discussion?
So you moved to close Hively,
Yes.
just rough count,
Are you-
about 20 spots.
You think so?
Okay, roll call.
Bergen,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Carlson.
Aye.
Luce. Johnson's gone. Hadley,
Aye.
Chisholm.
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay.
Maybe 18 to 20 spots you can get in there.
We have consider board and commission appointments. SMIT board is Eric, we can just do all these in one, correct?
Do them separately. So do
Okay.
the SMID board first.
Okay, the SMIT board is Eric Sovereign's a new appointment, and he is replacing
Dave Lester.
Dave Lester.
I'd make a motion to approve Eric Sovereign's appointment to the SMID board.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Roll call?
Hadley,
Aye.
Carlson.
Aye.
Luce. Neal,
Aye.
Chisholm,
Aye.
Bergen.
Aye.
Okay, and then we have new appointments to the library board of trustees, 3 seats. Shannon Horton, who is a new appointment. Shannon Putnam Dibble, which is a new appointment, and Cheryl Pellet, which is a reappointment.
I move to approve Shannon Horton, Shayna Dibble, and Cheryl Pellet to the Iowa Library Board of Trustees.
A second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Bergen,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Carlson.
Aye.
Luce. Hadley,
Aye.
Chisholm.
Aye.
We have open seats. Planning and Zoning Commission has a vacant seat. Civil Service Commission, 1 seat. Human Rights Commission, 2 seats. Communications Utility Board, 2 seats. City's representative to the Solid Waste Agency is open. So we'll be advertising for those. And anybody who's interested in those, be sure and get a hold of, you can put in the application online or come down to City Hall and talk to Gwenda or Chad. City Manager's Report.
A couple of things to report for the council tonight. There's a couple of items that I added to your Dropbox later today. One of them is draft job description for the building official position that we've been talking about for a while. The other is that I have met with Wayne Smith with Upper Iowa Speedway and drafted a memorandum of understanding for race operations and hours. And so that draft is also in your Dropbox. And there was another proposal to buy public land, parkland, and that has been presented to the Park and Rec Board. They do not recommend selling that land at this time. I'll write a background to that effect and get you that information, just so you can see that and take that recommendation under consideration as well. With that, I think I'll pass for now. Locust Road, between now and the next time you meet, will start construction, anticipated for June 22nd, so
Which is a week from today?
a week from today.
Amazing. I don't know, let's see, Andy, did you put stuff in the Dropbox or, okay. All right. How about council people? Andy Carlson?
I'm good, thank you, Mayor.
Randy Chisel?
How about we have a finance meeting at 5 o'clock on July 6th? We'll discuss possible proceeds, where to put them, Andy.
I like it.
What time?
5.
Five.
Before the meeting, it'll be a short meeting.
And that'd be before the next city council
Before the
meeting?
next city council meeting.
Okay.
Meet for a half hour and then break. But
So it would be a budget and finance committee on July 6th at 5 o'clock?
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you. That's all this evening, Mayor.
Okay, Johanna?
Nothing this evening. Thank you.
Emily?
I have two things, Mayor. One, I was wondering, I know June 6th was Flag Day, or there was just Flag Day, but I am wondering, even though there isn't a Pride Parade, it is Pride Month, and our flag policy does allow us to fly the Pride flag for Pride events or Flag Month, and I'm wondering if we could put the Pride flags up this month. Landmark decision on the Supreme Court today, we celebrate that too by hanging the flags, but.
Say that again.
So, wondering about hanging the Pride flag this month, June, for
Yeah,
Pride
I
Month.
caught all that except the last sentence.
Oh, I said landmark Supreme Court decision today, so it'd be another great way to hang the flag for that too. And then I also, really this is not my decision, but I said I'd bring it up because it came through my email this morning, wondering about a community betterment meeting to discuss the MOA with the Speedway. I think there are several citizens who would like to communicate, talk about that. If we want to discuss that MOA, I was thinking we could do it in a committee meeting as opposed to, or we could actually do it at our work session at the end of the month, either way. But
And that's in relation to the racetrack?
yeah, so we have a draft MOA, we should discuss it. I was thinking we could use a committee meeting to do it as opposed to a council meeting.
And Chad, can you tell me, were you meeting with that person?
I have already met with that
Okay.
person to draft the agreement.
Agreement, okay.
Yeah,
We had tentatively talked about a street committee on June 29 after the bids for Commerce. If there's a chance you could do that then, Johanna, if you wanted to.
So I am out of town for a significant amount of time between now and our next meeting, so I'm hesitant to be the facilitator, not opposed to the discussion happening. So I don't know if it's something we can piggyback onto Streets, Ross, or,
Sure, I will also be out of town, but through the power of Zoom meetings, I can attend, yes.
I will not have very much internet, but yeah.
Okay.
so June 29th?
Ross and I tentatively talked about a street committee meeting to review bids, so.
And is that the fourth, that would be normally a
That's
work?
the 5th.
Okay,
Yeah. And she's chair
Sorry, that's the
Betterment?
5th week,
Is
so
that correct?
22nd
Yeah.
would be our
Okay.
normal work session.
So we just appoint
so do we want to,
somebody on the committee?
are we having a work session on the 22nd?
The 22nd is.
The 4th.
Fourth,
yeah.
Thursday. I have not heard that anybody has said anything about anything.
I thought we were
But-
having standing work sessions always on the 4th.
You were if there are things to talk about.
Okay.
Sounds like maybe there are, so.
Well, then
Can we
how does
do-
that relate? Can you do that on the,
You can't, no, you still can't talk about the camera stuff because that's, bids are due on the.
oh, I see. So you were thinking of having one on the 29th?
26 bids.
It'd be on the 29th. Can we do that session on the 29th versus the 22nd?
Sure, I mean, yeah, if there are other, then we can dump other things in there too. So if we call it a work session as opposed to a committee meeting, then we can just dump a bunch of.
Talk about all these things.
Yeah.
I think we want to do that as well.
Yeah, so we could talk about Falkland Coon then too.
Okay, so it'd be a work session on Monday, June 29th.
Right,
Okay,
and the MOA will be on there and whatever else.
okay.
And I think those were my only other ones.
Russ?
I just wanted to express the fact that many of us have heard from our constituents that we're concerned about equity, whether it's racial equity or whether it's gender equity or whether it's discrimination or whatnot. There are 2 seats on the Human Rights Commission, and there's a seat on the Civil Service Commission. If you are concerned about human rights or equity in our community, I guess I would just encourage you to be part of the process, to help shape Decorah into the most welcoming community that it can be, through the boards with seats available. So I just want to encourage people that way. I wanted to recognize the fact that the high school graduation happened on Sunday. Kudos to the school system, the students, and everybody that pulled it off. It was a wonderful day. Congratulations to the seniors who graduated and to the teachers who have supported them for so many years. And nothing else at this time.
Okay. Steve, do you have anything?
I would just like to say that tonight's meeting was terrible. Some of us who are not able, because of the governor's mandate that people who are vulnerable should not leave home and not be there. And to hear, oh, well, come here, you should be here. I'm at a meeting on Zoom because I'm not supposed to be there. And you all sitting in the same room talking over each other and cutting each other off and starting conversations in the midst of someone else talking. If we don't want the public to pay any attention to us or be able to understand us, then we should continue on what we did tonight. Thank you.
Okay. The only thing I wanted to do was for just to pass on to the, sort of on what Ross was speaking on, and pass on to Dave and his department, and he can pass it on to the sheriffs as well, that we encourage the members. We also encourage the families as well, as I'm sure that it's hard at times to be listening to a lot of things that are going on, but we just encourage the work that you're doing and the support of your families, and know that the council is supporting you also. Anything else? Adjourn?
Move for adjournment.
Okay, so move. Thank you.